The meeting room on Nexus Prime Station was huge. 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that could have fit a small spaceship. The air recycling system worked hard to keep everyone comfortable, mixing the different atmospheres each species needed to breathe. Admiral Kethvar of the Altarian Empire shifted his tall, blue-skinned frame in his chair. His forearms moved restlessly as he studied the holographic displays floating above the table. The numbers were not good. In the 3 years since the war against the Devourers began, the Alliance had lost 47 star systems, hundreds of ships, and millions of lives. But one set of numbers bothered him most of all. The humans have lost 60% of their fleet, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets for over 2 centuries. They volunteer for every dangerous mission. They take risks that no sane military would consider. Why do they keep throwing their lives away? Commander Sarah Chen sat across from him. She was small compared to most of the aliens in the room, but her eyes held something that made even the massive Thorgan representatives pay attention. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her uniform was clean, but showed signs of many repairs. "We don't throw our lives away," she said quietly. "We remember them." The Centauran delegate made a clicking sound with his beak. "All species remember their dead commander. We hold ceremonies. We build monuments. But you humans seem to carry your ghosts everywhere you go." Chen stood up and walked to the main display console. Her fingers moved across the controls, and the holographic battle maps disappeared. Instead, the room filled with a soft blue light that showed something completely different. Names. Thousands and thousands of names floating in the air like stars. "This is Lieutenant Michael Torres," Chen said, pointing to one name that glowed brighter than the others. "He died defending a colony ship full of Altarian civilians. He could have escaped, but he stayed behind to fix the engine that would get them to safety." The name pulsed once, and suddenly the room could see Michael Torres, a young man with a crooked smile and kind eyes. They saw his service record, his letters home to his family, and the final message he sent before the Devourer ships overwhelmed his position. "This is Engineer First Class Maria Santos," Chen continued, highlighting another name. "She died on the mining station at Kepler 186F. A reactor overload would have killed 300 people. She went into the radiation zone to manually shut it down. She saved every life on that station." Maria's image appeared next to Michael's, a woman in her 40s with grease-stained hands and a determined expression. Her final report played in the air, describing exactly how to prevent the same kind of reactor failure from happening again. "This is Medic Jamie Park," Chen said, her voice getting softer. "Age 19. Died treating wounded Thorgan soldiers during the retreat from Vega Prime. Could have made it to the evacuation ship, but stayed with his patients until the very end." Admiral Kethvar leaned forward in his chair. "Commander, we understand that humans honor their dead, but these displays, they seem to cause you pain. Why do you torture yourselves this way?" Chen turned to face the assembled representatives. "You think we're torturing ourselves? You think this is about pain?" She touched the console again, and suddenly the room was filled with tactical data. Ship movements, weapon specifications, defensive strategies, and battle reports. But this wasn't just any tactical data. This was information that had been learned through the sacrifice of the people whose names still glowed in the air around them. "Michael Torres didn't just die defending that colony ship," Chen explained. "His final battle report showed us a weakness in Devourer pursuit patterns. Because of what he learned in his last fight, we've saved 16 other ships from the same kind of attack." The tactical display shifted to show Maria Santos's data. Maria's analysis of the reactor failure led to new safety protocols. "We've prevented 43 similar disasters across the Alliance. Her death taught us how to save thousands of lives." Jamie Park's medical records appeared next. Jamie's field reports from treating Thorgan physiology under combat conditions created new emergency procedures. Thorgan survival rates in battle have improved by 30% because of what he learned while dying. The room fell silent. The alien representatives stared at the floating names and data streams with new understanding. Chen walked slowly around the table, her hand trailing through the holographic display. Every human ship has a memorial like this. Every station, every colony, every outpost. We don't just remember our dead. We learn from them. We carry their knowledge forward. We make sure their deaths mean something. The Altarian admiral's voice was quiet when he spoke, but surely this connection to death. It must affect your military effectiveness. Your soldiers must be afraid. Knowing they will be remembered this way, Chen smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Admiral, you still don't understand. Our soldiers aren't afraid of being forgotten. They're afraid of dying without teaching us something useful. They go into impossible situations because they know that if they don't make it back, their experience will help save others. She gestured to the display, and hundreds more names appeared. Every human who dies in this war becomes a teacher. Every sacrifice adds to our knowledge. Every loss makes us stronger. We don't fight for glory or medals or fame. We fight for them. She pointed at the names floating around them. We fight for the ones who can't fight anymore. The Thorgan representative, a massive creature covered in thick armor plates, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. This seems inefficient. You carry emotional weight that slows down logical thinking. Chen shook her head. No, you're wrong. Love doesn't make us weak. It makes us precise. When every death matters, when every sacrifice teaches us something, we become very good at not making the same mistakes twice. She turned off the display, and the names faded away like dying stars. But somehow, their presence still filled the room. The Devourers consume everything and learn nothing, Chen said. They waste their victories because they forget their defeats. But we humans, we remember everything. And we're going to teach them why that matters. As the meeting ended and the representatives filed out, Admiral Kethvar stayed behind. He stared at the empty space where the human memorial had been, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. For the first time in his long military career, he wondered if his people had been thinking about death all wrong. The emergency alarm on the bridge of the human frigate Times Remembrance Times cut through the artificial night cycle like a knife. Captain Marcus Torres rolled out of his bunk and was fully dressed in 90 seconds. A skill learned through 5 years of fighting the Devourers. Report, he said, as he stepped onto the bridge, his boots clicking against the metal deck plates. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka looked up from her console, her face pale in the blue light of the displays. Distress beacon from Research Station Omega 7 on Kepler 442b. The planet's main defense grid went dark 40 minutes ago. Devourer ships are everywhere. Torres moved to his command chair and pulled up the tactical display. The situation looked bad. The mining world of Kepler 442b was home to 6 million people from different alien species. Most of the population was being evacuated through the main spaceports. But Research Station Omega 7 was on the far side of the planet, cut off from the evacuation routes. How many people at the station? Torres asked. 847, Tanaka replied. Mixed crew. Scientists, engineers, support staff. She paused and looked at her captain. 23 are human. Torres stared at the display. The station was surrounded by Devourer scout ships. Getting there would mean fighting through enemy forces with no backup. His frigate was fast but lightly armed. If this was a trap, his entire crew of 112 people would die. Sir, said Ensign Rodriguez from the weapons console, we could request support from the main fleet. Admiral Chen might be able to send a destroyer group. By the time they get here, everyone on that station will be dead, Torres said. He looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had been fighting beside him for 2 years. He knew their families, their hopes, their fears. He knew exactly how much he was asking of them. Helm, set course for Research Station Omega 7, maximum burn. Sir, Tanaka said quietly, that's a lot of people to risk our lives for 23 humans. Torres turned to look at his tactical officer. Yuki Tanaka was one of the best officers he'd ever served with. She was smart, brave, and completely loyal. But she was also young and still learning what it really meant to be human in this war. "Yuki," he said, "bring up our memorial database." The main display changed, and suddenly the bridge was filled with soft light. Names appeared in the air around them, hundreds of names of people who had died serving on the Times, Remembrance Times, or in Torres's previous commands. "Computer," Torres said. "Display personnel file for Commander Elena Vasquez." A woman's face appeared in the air above them. She had gray hair and kind eyes, and she wore the uniform of the Terran Engineering Corps. Her service record showed 26 years of experience building stations and maintaining life support systems across human space. "Elena died 6 months ago defending a Centauran medical facility," Torres said. "The Devourers were trying to destroy a hospital full of wounded civilians. Elena and her team held them off long enough for everyone to escape." He paused, looking at the image of his old friend. Elena wasn't fighting for humans that day. She was fighting for anyone who needed help. The display changed again, showing another face. This time it was a young man with dark skin and a serious expression. "Sergeant David Kim," Torres continued, "died on Proxima Station covering the evacuation of Thorgan refugees. He could have made it to the escape pods, but he stayed behind to operate the defensive guns manually when the computer systems failed." More faces appeared. Lieutenant Sarah Jackson, who died fixing a damaged Altarian ship's life support. Engineer Marcus Webb, who sacrificed himself to save a transport full of Centauran children. Medic Anna Chen, who stayed with wounded alien soldiers when her own unit had to retreat. "Every person on this memorial died fighting for someone else," Torres said. "Not for humans. For anyone who needed help. That's what makes us human. That's what they taught us." He looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all staring at the floating names and faces, remembering friends and comrades who had given everything to protect others. "So when you ask me if it's worth risking our lives for 23 humans," Torres said, "you're asking the wrong question. The question is, would Elena want us to abandon 847 people because it's dangerous? Would David want us to let innocent scientists die because we're scared? Would Sarah, or Marcus, or Anna want us to forget what they taught us?" Tanaka looked at the memorial display, and Torres saw her expression change. She understood now. "No, sir," she said quietly. "They wouldn't." "Computer," Torres said. "Begin memorial protocol." The bridge lighting dimmed slightly, and a different kind of display appeared. This wasn't just names and faces anymore. This was knowledge, tactical information, battle strategies, and lessons learned through sacrifice. Every person who had died serving under Torres had left behind their experiences, their insights, and their wisdom. As the Time's Remembrance Times accelerated toward the research station, the crew began the ritual that every human ship performed before a dangerous mission. They spoke the names of their dead. "Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison," said Rodriguez from the weapons console. "He taught me how to target Devourer weak points during the Battle of Vega Prime." "Chief Engineer Lisa Park," said the voice from the engine room through the comm system. "She showed me how to get 15% more power from the reactor cores when we really need it." "Dr. Amanda Foster," said Tanaka, her voice steady now. "She was the first person to map Devourer communication patterns. Her research is why we know how to jam their signals." One by one, the crew spoke the names of people who had died, teaching them how to fight, how to survive, how to save others. These weren't just memories. They were instructions from beyond the grave, tactical advice from teachers who would never come home. As they approached the research station, Torres felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. It wasn't just the lives of his crew he carried, it was the knowledge and sacrifice of everyone who had died to bring them this far. "Sensors show 12 Devourer scouts around the station," Tanaka reported. "They're not attacking yet, but they're definitely waiting for something." "It's a trap," Rodriguez said. "They want us to come in so they can surround us." Torres nodded. "Probably. But Elena Vasquez once told me that the best way to spring a trap is to bring your own trap with you." He smiled grimly. "Computer, load David Kim's defensive pattern 7, Lisa Park's emergency power distribution, and Amanda Foster's communication jamming sequence." The ship's systems hummed as the computer loaded the tactical programs developed by the dead. On the memorial display, the faces of Elena, David, Lisa, and Amanda seemed to glow a little brighter. "All right," Torres said, as the Time's remembrance times entered weapons range of the enemy ships. "Let's show these devourers what 847 lives are worth, and let's make our fallen proud." The battle for Research Station Omega-7 was about to begin. Admiral Keth Var had fought in 17 major battles during his 200-year military career. He had commanded fleets, conquered worlds, and earned medals from 6 different alien governments, but he had never seen anything like the human command center on Forward Base Alpha. The underground facility buzzed with activity as hundreds of human officers planned the assault on the Vega system. Holographic displays showed enemy positions, supply lines, and battle formations. But what caught Keth Var's attention was something else entirely. Every single workstation had a small shrine next to it. Photos of dead humans, personal items, and glowing data tablets that showed the service records of fallen comrades. The humans worked surrounded by reminders of people who would never see another sunrise. "This is unhealthy," he muttered to his aide, a young Altarian officer named Zethmar. "How can they think clearly when they're always focused on death?" "On!" Colonel Elena Vasquez approached them, her boots echoing on the metal floor. She was a small woman by human standards, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had survived dozens of battles. In her hand was a data tablet that never seemed to leave her side. "Admiral Keth Var," she said, offering the traditional Altarian gesture of respect. "Thank you for agreeing to join our ground assault. We can use your experience." Keth Var looked down at the human colonel. "I'm curious about your methods, Colonel. My intelligence reports say you've lost more soldiers than any other unit in the Alliance, yet you keep volunteering for the most dangerous missions. Is this some kind of death wish?" Vasquez smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "May I show you something, Admiral?" She led him to her personal command station, where the largest shrine dominated one entire wall. Hundreds of photos looked down at them, faces of every age and background, young soldiers barely out of training, experienced sergeants with gray hair, medics and engineers and pilots who had died under Vasquez's command. 12,847 people, Vasquez said, touching her data tablet. "That's how many soldiers I've lost in 8 years of fighting the Devourers. I know every name, every face, every family they left behind." Keth Var's forearms crossed in front of his chest. "Colonel, dwelling on past failures will only cloud your judgment. A good commander learns from mistakes and moves forward." "You're absolutely right," Vasquez said. "That's exactly what we do. But you misunderstand what these are." She gestured to the photos surrounding them. "These aren't failures, Admiral. They're teachers." She activated her tablet, and the air around them filled with tactical data. Private James Rodriguez died during the assault on Kepler 438b. A devourer acid spitter caught him in the open, but before he died, he sent a detailed report about the creature's attack patterns and how to avoid them. The display showed Rodriguez's final message, recorded through his helmet camera, as the young soldier lay dying. Despite his wounds, he spoke clearly and precisely, describing exactly how the enemy weapon worked and what tactics might counter it. "Because of James's sacrifice, we developed new armor that protects against acid attacks. Devourer acid spitters have killed 85% fewer soldiers since then." The display changed, showing another fallen soldier. Sergeant Lisa Chen died when her squad was ambushed in the ruins of New Tokyo, but she managed to record the Devourer flanking maneuver that caught them off guard. Her tactical analysis led to new patrol procedures that have prevented similar ambushes. Keth Var studied the data streams flowing around him. Each record was incredibly detailed, containing not just what had happened, but analysis of why it had happened and how to prevent it in the future. "This is impressive record-keeping," he admitted. "But surely this focus on death affects morale? Your soldiers must be terrified, knowing their mistakes will be studied forever." Vasquez laughed, a sound that was both bitter and proud. "Admiral, You still don't understand. Our soldiers aren't afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid of dying without teaching us anything useful. She touched the tablet again, and new displays appeared. Combat footage from recent battles, showing human soldiers in desperate situations. But instead of panic or fear, Kethvar saw something remarkable. The humans were narrating their actions, speaking into their comm units even as they fought for their lives. Watch this, Vasquez said, highlighting one particular video. A human corporal was trapped in a burning building, surrounded by devourer creatures. As he fought, he calmly described the enemy's behavior patterns, their weakness to fire, and the best angles for grenade attacks. Even when a creature's claws tore through his armor, he kept reporting. Corporal Martinez died in that building, Vasquez explained. But his real-time analysis helped the next squad clear the entire structure with 0 casualties. He saved 37 lives with his last words. The Altarian admiral felt something he rarely experienced: confusion. In his culture, death in battle was honored with ceremony and remembrance. But then, life moved on. The idea of the dead continuing to serve, continuing to teach and guide, was completely foreign to him. How do you process this information? He asked. Surely you can't analyze every death in such detail? We have help, Vasquez said. She led him to another section of the command center, where dozens of humans sat in front of large displays, studying combat footage and casualty reports. This is the analysis division, she explained. Their job is to learn from every death, every injury, every close call. They take the final reports from our fallen soldiers and turn them into new tactics, new training procedures, new equipment designs. Kethvar watched as the analysts worked. They treated each death record like a valuable scientific specimen, examining every detail with respect and careful attention. There was no sadness here, no mourning, just dedicated professionals extracting knowledge from sacrifice. In your culture, Vasquez continued, death is an ending. A soldier dies, you hold a ceremony, and that's the end of their contribution. But for us, death is a transformation. Our soldiers become teachers, advisors, guides for the living. She activated a new display that showed the tactical doctrine of the human Marines. It was constantly evolving, updated daily with new information from the field. But the really remarkable thing was the source of the updates. Every new procedure, every tactical innovation, every piece of equipment modification could be traced back to someone who had died learning it. This is why we volunteer for dangerous missions, Vasquez said. Not because we want to die, but because we know that if we do die, our deaths will mean something. They'll make the soldiers who come after us better, smarter, more likely to survive. The admiral was quiet for a long moment, studying the endless flow of data around them. Finally, he spoke. This seems like a heavy burden to carry, he said. All these voices from beyond, all this knowledge bought with blood. Vasquez nodded. It is heavy, but it's also powerful. When I go into battle, I'm not just one soldier with one set of experiences. I carry the wisdom of 12,847 teachers who paid the ultimate price to share what they learned. She looked up at the photos surrounding them, and her voice grew soft. They can't come home, Admiral. But they can still protect their friends. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 18 hours. Representatives from 12 species argued, debated, and pleaded, as the holographic displays showed the same terrible truth over and over again. The devourers were coming to Earth. Admiral Chen stood at the center of the circular chamber, her uniform wrinkled from the long debate. Around her, alien voices rose in anger and fear as they discussed the unthinkable. The fleet massing at the edge of the Sol system is 3 times larger than anything we've seen before, said the Centauran representative, his beak clicking nervously. Our intelligence suggests they have developed new bioweapons specifically designed to break through planetary defenses. The massive Thorgan delegate pounded his armored fist on the table. Earth's orbital stations cannot withstand this assault. The defensive grid will fall within hours, which is why we must evacuate immediately, Admiral Kethvar said, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of urgency. "We can establish a new defensive line at Alpha Centauri. Earth can be sacrificed to save the Alliance." A cold silence fell over the chamber. Every representative turned to look at Chen, waiting for humanity's response to the proposal that would abandon their home world. "No," Chen said quietly. "Admiral Chen," the Altarian commander continued, "be reasonable. Earth cannot be defended against a force this large. To stay would be suicide." "I said no," Chen replied, her voice growing stronger. "Humanity will not abandon Earth." The Centauran representative made a sound of frustration. "Commander, we understand your emotional attachment to your birth world. But we must think strategically. One planet is not worth losing the entire war." Chen walked to the main display console and activated her command codes. The tactical maps of the approaching Devourer fleet disappeared, replaced by something the Council had never seen before. Earth hung in the center of the chamber, but this wasn't the blue and green world they knew. This Earth glowed with millions of points of light, each one pulsing softly like a heartbeat. The lights covered every continent, every ocean, every inch of the planet's surface. "This is the Central Memorial," Chen said. "Every light you see represents someone who died fighting the Devourers. Not just humans. Everyone who gave their lives defending Earth, or any other world in this war." The lights began to pulse in patterns, and suddenly the council chamber filled with voices. Thousands of them, speaking in dozens of languages, sharing knowledge and experiences from beyond the grave. "The memorial isn't just a monument," Chen explained. "It's a living system. A quantum neural network that stores the consciousness, memories, and tactical knowledge of everyone who has fallen in this war. They continue to serve, continue to fight, continue to protect those who are still alive." Admiral Kethvar stared at the glowing image of Earth. "You're talking about artificial intelligence? Computer programs based on dead soldiers?" "No," Chen said firmly. "I'm talking about the soldiers themselves. Their actual consciousness, uploaded at the moment of death through neural implants every Alliance soldier carries. They're not copies or programs. They're the real people. Still thinking. Still learning. Still fighting." The Thorgan representative leaned forward, his massive frame creaking. "This is impossible. Consciousness cannot survive death." Chen smiled grimly. "Human technology has always been different from yours. While you focused on building better weapons and stronger armor, we focused on making sure death wasn't the end. Every human soldier who dies in battle uploads their entire consciousness to the memorial network within seconds of death." The display changed, zooming in on one section of Earth. The Council could see thousands of installations connected by streams of light, all feeding information into a massive central complex. "The memorial processes the experiences of over 2 million fallen soldiers," Chen continued. "It combines their knowledge, analyzes their tactics, and provides real-time strategic guidance to every human military unit. When our ships fight, they're not just crewed by the living, they're guided by everyone who came before." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The aliens had always wondered why human military effectiveness seemed to improve with each battle. Why their tactics became more sophisticated, even as they suffered heavy losses. Now they understood. "This is why you won't abandon Earth," Kethvar said slowly. "You would be abandoning your dead. Don't lead Dade Duar with third." "More than that," Chen replied. "If the memorial is destroyed, humanity loses its tactical advantage. All that knowledge, all those experiences, all those teachers who paid for their wisdom with their lives, gone forever." Quote, she gestured to the pulsing lights on the display. "Every human who has died in this war continues to serve through the memorial. They analyze enemy patterns, develop new strategies, and guide the living in battle. To abandon Earth would be like cutting out our military brain." The Centauran representative clicked his beak thoughtfully. "But surely this system could be moved, relocated to a safer world?" Chen shook her head. "The memorial is quantum entangled with Earth itself. The neural network extends deep into the planet's core. using the magnetic field to maintain consciousness coherence. It cannot be moved or copied. If Earth falls, the memorial dies with it. The display shifted again, showing battle footage from recent engagements. The Council watched as human forces fought with impossible coordination. Their movements perfectly synchronized, as if guided by a single mind. "This is how we fight now," Chen explained. "Every ship, every soldier, every commander is connected to the memorial. When a human pilot dies in battle, their final moments are instantly shared with every other pilot in the fleet. When a ground unit discovers a new enemy weakness, that knowledge is immediately available to every soldier on every front." Admiral Kethvar stood up slowly, his tall frame towering over the conference table. "Are you saying that your dead soldiers are still actively participating in this war?" "Every day," Chen confirmed. "They plan our strategies, guide our tactics, and share their knowledge with the living. Death, for humans, is not an ending. It's a promotion to a higher level of service." The silence in the chamber was deafening. The alien representatives struggled to comprehend what they had just learned. A military force that became stronger with each death, guided by the accumulated wisdom of everyone who had ever fallen defending freedom. "The Devourers are coming to Earth because they know what the memorial represents," Chen said. "They can't understand it, but they recognize the threat, a species that learns from death, that transforms sacrifice into strength, that refuses to let their fallen rest. It's their worst nightmare." She turned to face the assembled council, her eyes blazing with determination. "So yes, we will defend Earth. Not just because it's our home, but because it's where our teachers live. Our fallen comrades guide us still, and we won't abandon them now." The vote was unanimous. The Alliance would make its stand at Earth, fighting alongside the living memory of everyone who had already given their lives for freedom. As the council session ended, Admiral Kethvar approached Chen privately. "Commander, what you've shown us today, it changes everything. If your people can truly preserve consciousness after death, then this war is no longer about the living versus the dead. It's about memory versus oblivion." Chen nodded. "Now you're beginning to understand what we've known all along. The Devourers consume and forget. But we remember everything. And our dead are about to teach them why that matters." The first wave of Devourer ships appeared at the edge of the Sol system like a swarm of angry insects. Their biomechanical hulls pulsed with organic weaponry, and their numbers darkened the space between Mars and Jupiter. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the flagship Times Eternal Vigilance Times as her sensors counted the enemy vessels. 2,417 ships, reported Lieutenant Commander Park, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. "We're facing the largest Devourer fleet ever assembled." Chen nodded, her hands resting on the command console. Around her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency, but she could see the tension in their movements. Through the viewports, the lights of Earth's orbital defense platforms glittered like jewels against the dark. "Signal all units," Chen commanded. "Activate Memorial Protocol." Across the Sol system, something unprecedented began to happen. Every human ship, station, and defensive platform suddenly connected to the same vast network. The central memorial on Earth's surface awakened, its quantum processors humming with the consciousness of 2 million fallen soldiers. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship Times Pride of Altair *, watching the human preparations with fascination. His ship was positioned near Earth's largest orbital station, and through his sensors, he could see streams of data flowing between the human vessels like rivers of light. "What are they doing?" asked his aide Zethmar. "They're bringing back their dead," Kethvar said quietly. On the bridge of the Times Eternal Vigilance *, Chen felt the familiar sensation of the memorial connection activating. Suddenly, she wasn't alone in her command chair. The consciousness of every human admiral who had ever died in battle was there with her, sharing their knowledge and experience. Admiral Patricia Williams, who died defending the Centauri colonies, whispered tactical advice about fighting numerically superior forces. Commander David Zhang, killed in the first Devourer attack, shared intelligence about enemy ship weaknesses. Captain Sarah Mitchell, who sacrificed herself at the Battle of Wolf 359, provided insights into Devourer command structures. The voices didn't speak in her head like ghosts. They were part of her thoughts now. Their experiences merged with her own through the quantum network. Chen retained full command authority, but she had access to the tactical wisdom of every fallen leader. Incoming transmission from the Devourer fleet, Lieutenant Park reported. Put it through, Chen ordered. The main display filled with the image of a Devourer command creature. It looked like a cross between an insect and a machine. Its organic parts merged seamlessly with technological components. When it spoke, its voice was a chorus of thousands of individual Devourer voices speaking in unison. Human vessels, the creature said. You cannot defend this world. Our analysis indicates your defensive capabilities are insufficient against our forces. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Chen smiled grimly. Devourer command vessel. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You've made one critical error in your analysis. Explain, the creature demanded. You think we're fighting alone? Chen replied. But we're not. Every human who has died in this war is here with us today. You're not facing one fleet. You're facing the accumulated fury of 2 million ghosts who want their friends to come home safely. The Devourer commander made a sound like grinding metal. The dead cannot fight, human. Your superstitions will not save you. We'll see about that, Chen said, and cut the transmission. The battle began with the Devourers launching their new bioweapons, massive creatures that moved through space like living asteroids. Their organic armor was designed to resist conventional weapons, and their acid projectiles could eat through human ship hulls in seconds. But as the first bioweapon approached Earth's defenses, something unexpected happened. Every human gunner in the fleet fired at exactly the same moment, targeting the same weak spot with perfect coordination. The creature died in a burst of green fluid before it could fire a single shot. How did they know where to aim? Zethmar asked, staring at his tactical display in amazement. Admiral Kethvar watched the data streams flowing between human ships. They're sharing information instantaneously. Every ship that engages the enemy immediately transmits its findings to the entire fleet. As the battle intensified, the Devourer advantage began to dissolve. Their bioweapons were designed to learn and adapt during combat, but they had never faced an enemy that could share knowledge faster than they could evolve. When the first human ship was destroyed by a new type of Devourer acid cannon, the dying crew uploaded complete sensor data about the weapon to the memorial network. Within seconds, every other human ship had defensive countermeasures and return fire solutions. Commander Torres, fighting his frigate times, remembrance times in the thick of the battle, felt the presence of every comrade he had ever lost. Elena Vasquez guided his tactical decisions. David Kim coordinated his defensive patterns. Lisa Park optimized his power distribution for maximum efficiency. It's like fighting with an army of advisors, he told his crew over the comm. Everyone who ever died, teaching us how to fight, is here helping us today. The Devourer fleet, accustomed to enemies that became weaker as they suffered casualties, found themselves facing something impossible. Every human ship they destroyed made the remaining ships more dangerous, not less. The humans were learning from death itself, turning their losses into tactical advantages. As the battle raged around Earth's moon, a new type of Devourer vessel appeared. This one was massive, clearly the command ship for the entire fleet. Its biomechanical hull pulsed with dark energy, and sensor readings showed it contained the collective intelligence of the Devourer hive mind. That's their leader, Chen said, pointing to the enormous vessel. If we can destroy it, their coordination will collapse. But the command ship was heavily defended, surrounded by hundreds of smaller vessels. A direct assault would be suicide. That's when the memorial network provided something no living tactician could have imagined. The consciousness of every human who had ever died in a suicide mission began to share their experiences. Pilots who had rammed enemy ships, soldiers who had detonated explosives while surrounded, engineers who had overloaded reactors to take out enemy forces. I'm reading massive power fluctuations from the human ships, Zethmar reported. It looks like they're preparing to overload their reactor cores. Kethvar realized what the humans were planning. They're going to sacrifice themselves to destroy the command ship, every vessel in their fleet. But instead of individual ships making desperate suicide runs, something extraordinary happened. The human fleet moved as one, their actions perfectly coordinated by the voices of the dead. Ships that were damaged beyond repair positioned themselves as shields for healthier vessels. Fighters that were out of ammunition served as decoys. Every sacrifice was calculated, precise, and meaningful. The assault on the Devourer command ship was led by the consciousness of Admiral Patricia Williams, speaking through the ships of the living. Her voice echoed across every human vessel as she coordinated the attack. "This is for everyone who never came home," her voice said through the fleet communications. "This is for everyone who died so others could live. This is for all the teachers who paid for their wisdom with their blood." The Devourer command ship died in a burst of organic fire, its massive hull collapsing as the hive mind within was destroyed. Without their central intelligence, the remaining Devourer ships began to flee, their coordination broken. As the battle ended and the enemy retreated, Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, surrounded by the quantum ghosts of her fallen comrades. She could feel them beginning to fade as the memorial network powered down. But their presence lingered like a warm embrace. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty air. "Thank you for coming back one more time." Admiral Kethvar's ship approached the Time's Eternal Vigilance asterisk, and he requested permission to come aboard. When he arrived on Chen's bridge, his forearms were crossed in the Altarian gesture of deepest respect. "Admiral Chen," he said, "I finally understand what makes humans different from every other species in the galaxy." "What's that?" Chen asked. "You refuse to let death be the end of service," Kethvar replied. "Your fallen don't rest in peace. They rest in purpose. They continue to fight, continue to teach, continue to protect those they love. You've turned death itself into a weapon." Chen looked out at the lights of Earth, where the central memorial continued to pulse with the consciousness of millions of fallen heroes. "They didn't die for glory," she said softly. "They died for each other. And as long as we remember them, as long as we learn from them, as long as we carry them forward, they never really die at all." The war against the Devourers continued. But now the galaxy understood what humanity brought to the fight. Not just ships and weapons and soldiers, but something far more powerful. The promise that no sacrifice would ever be forgotten, and no lesson would ever be lost.